Let's talk about drugs. So you have an infection and you go to the doctor and he prescribes you some antibiotics. Your infection's healed in days. Great. Or you haven't been feeling yourself lately. So you go to the doctor and he prescribes you some antidepressants. Life-changing. Or you're taking your dog for a walk, minding your own business, and you walk by your hippie neighbor's house and it smells like skunk. Gotta love the smell of weed in the morning. Or maybe you're like a friend of mine, living in a peaceful home in Idaho. And one night, your neighbor, who is typically quiet and friendly, breaks in your house with a gun and is smashing things and trying to kill you. Gotta love crack cocaine. So, what are drugs and why do they have these effects on us? Well, let me tell you, drugs are any substance that change a person's mental or physical state. Most of them are used medicinally. They're used to treat infections, to help with certain conditions, or to ease up any symptoms you might have. They're almost endlessly helpful. Almost. But if too much of it is used, or if they're used in the wrong way, they can have some really bad side effects. But besides the drugs that we use medicinally, there are also drugs that are out there that people use just for the reality-distorting effects that they have on your mind. These drugs have absolutely no medical benefit whatsoever, and are sold on what's known as the black market. There's all different kinds of drugs, good and bad. In fact, there's 1,453 drugs that are officially approved by the FDA. And those are just the legal ones. There's hundreds and hundreds of strands and crossovers and chemicals and good drugs and bad drugs that are all intertwined together that is not recorded at all. And there are thousands of them. So because there are so many, it's kind of hard to categorize them. So we're just going to go over a couple for today. Antidepressants. These would include prescriptions such as Zoloft, Celexa, and Prozac. These are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That's a mouthful. They are the most commonly used drug to treat depression. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps the areas of the brain communicate with one another. It also helps your brain communicate with the rest of your body. Serotonin is responsible for many things, including mood, sleep, appetite, sexual desire, even temperature regulation. So serotonin is really important. The only thing with it is if it's out of balance with the rest of the chemicals in your brain, then it can cause things such as anxiety, OCD, and depression. So the SSRI's job is to balance the serotonin that's in your brain, thus boosting your mood and causing feelings of depression and anxiety to dissipate. Anti-inflammatory drugs. These are also known as NSAIDs, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These were invented to be pain relievers, but conveniently enough, they also work as anti-inflammatory drugs. Inflammation is the body's response to irritation or injury. Inflammation occurs with redness, swelling, warmth, and pain. NSAIDs work by blocking the chemicals that cause inflammation. They can be used to treat ongoing conditions such as arthritis or tendonitis, but they can also be used to treat injuries. If you've ever had an ibuprofen or aspirin, then you've probably had some of these yourself. NSAIDs stop the enzymes in your body from producing the chemicals that cause inflammation. This can cause some side effects though. For example, inside your stomach, these chemicals that are produced in your stomach help protect from acid and ulcers. So when you take this drug to stop those chemicals from protecting those things, you might be causing yourself some stomach pain. This can easily be resolved by taking it with food or by taking the correct dosage. Now, what can happen if you don't take the correct dosage? In a 2-year period, the US reported 50,216 overdoses on NSAIDs. Of those 50,000 people, only 131 had a major outcome and only 10 died. So when people talk about ibuprofen or aspirin being deadly, not so much. Typical symptoms of NSAID overdose are things like nausea, vomiting, dizziness, blurred vision, headache, stuff like that. And while those symptoms are unpleasant, they're not going to do any long-term harm. The ones that did experience major effects from overdosing suffered from seizures, hypotension, coma, and renal failure. But you've got to keep in mind, only 0.0001% of people who overdosed on NSAIDs actually died. Marijuana. Marijuana is a very common drug that comes from dried out pieces of the hemp plant. Depending on the strain of marijuana, it can act as a stimulant, a depressant, or a hallucinogen. In 2012, 7% of Americans said that they had used marijuana in the last month, and 49% had said that they had tried marijuana at least once. Marijuana is very common, and a lot of people would argue that it's not that bad for your health and it should be legal. Personally, I don't care. I am indifferent. It doesn't matter to me. But that's besides the point. Marijuana is used for a lot of reasons, most of which being medical, recreational, or social. The main component of marijuana that makes people feel so happy and relaxed is THC. That chemical makes people feel a sense of euphoria and sociability. From 1976, the amount of THC that's in marijuana has increased from 2% to 8%. The biggest complaint that people have about the legalization of marijuana is that it's a gateway drug. Some people think that by smoking marijuana, they're more likely to be curious about other drugs that are more dangerous for you, like heroin or cocaine. In 2012, 63% of people had said they'd never done anything worse than weed, but that also leaves 37% of people who had done something harder than weed. So the argument with this is that those who do move on to try harder drugs have to start somewhere, and marijuana is a very popular stepping stone, because you don't typically see a completely sober person suddenly shooting up heroin. Speaking of nasty drugs, let's talk about meth. Crystal meth. Thanks to shows like Breaking Bad, now meth is very popular and glorified. Everyone just couldn't get enough of the blue stuff. But what is it about those little rocks that keeps users coming back? Despite its horrible side effects, users just can't seem to get enough of it. Not only is it mentally and physically addicting, but the people who use meth love the feeling that initially gives them so much that they have to keep going back. It's usually snorted or smoked, and it gives the user a false sense of extreme happiness and well-being. They usually feel very confident and full of energy that they might not actually have. Meth is created by mixing amphetamines with other chemicals. Meth cooks are known for extracting ingredients that they need from cold medicines, and then mixing them with other things like battery acids, drain cleaners, and antifreeze. And guess where all that lovely stuff goes when you snort it? Right into your body, where it doesn't belong! On that note, be careful, ladies and gentlemen. There are many different kinds of drugs. There are some that are very helpful and there are some that are very hurtful. Take caution in what you're taking and how much. You've got one body, so do yourself a favor and take care of it. Peace out.